Well, no doubt, if you've been to your local grocery store or a Target or a Walmart in recent months, you have seen the rise in the use of self checkout. Companies have been mixing in this technology because they believe it to be cheaper, but also more effective for their consumers. But it appears that there are some issues out there with self checkout. And in fact, in some cases, retailers are cutting back due to rising levels of theft. So what does this mean for the technology? Pleasure to be joined by Santiago Gallino, who is an associate professor of operations, information, and decisions here at the Wharton School. He's also an associate professor of marketing. Santiago, great to talk to you again. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, doing well. Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, so this is an interesting dynamic at play here because of what was believed to be just the absolute ease at which technology was going to help the process of people getting in and out of stores. But I guess, did we have to maybe see something like this coming when you have to factor in the human component with the shoppers as well?
Yeah, so I think this is interesting, and as you are hinting to, is probably also expected to some degree. If we think like, what are the retailers thinking when they decide to bring a technology into the store, self-checkout being one of them? They try to weigh the pros and cons. And I think that in the early days, it was very clear that there was a potential labor saving component that was to compensate for the investment in the technology, also allowing for mitigating the peak demand times and making everyone happier with lower wait times in the lines and whatnot. Now, the unknowns of that process are, on the one hand, to what extent customers are going to be frustrated that now they need to do the part of the job. And the other one, which is what you mentioned earlier, is like, to what extent we're going to see intended or unintended errors in the checkout point. And that's what we're seeing now, that once the retailers are starting to actually observe those unknowns, they are kind of recalibrating that decision.
It's been mentioned that I guess with some retailers, they are limiting the number of items that people can purchase when they go through self-checkout. And I guess the retailers see this as a way to maybe mitigate some of the potential problems.
That's right. And I think that this limitation on the number of items speaks to this dual problem. On the one side, the complexity of the task itself, like we are customers, not expert cashiers. And although the task is simple, you can make mistakes, and these mistakes can increase with more items. At the same time, if you want to assign one employee to monitor multiple self-checkout, or you want to do that with a video camera, it's more accurate and simpler to do if you limit the number of items. So I think that the simplification of the task, it's helping the customer, and it's helping the retailer to monitor that step too.
And this is not an instance where companies are going to rethink having the technology in their mix. They're still going to have it. It's just, and this falls right in line with your work, it's an operational process that they have to kind of work through to see how they can best run this now.
Yeah, so I think you're right that for most retailers, this is a question of kind of recalibrating, not taking the technology away. The ones I've seen that have kind of pushed into removing the technology altogether, it's more of an argument of missing the connection with the customer, missing that kind of opportunity of interaction with the customer, making the whole experience too detached from an environment where the customer feel embraced. And so it is more like, if you want, like a more of a strategic reason. With the companies that see these still in the space of, okay, we can make this work, is trying to mitigate the problem by reducing the hours of operation, reducing the number of items, updating the technology. I think over the last few years, we've seen new technologies, like now sometimes you have the possibility to weight the product after you scan it, and that serves as a reinforcement mechanism and things like that.
You mentioned about the adding in of workers in and around a self-checkout area to kind of help monitor it. You also talked about the use of cameras. I've seen it go as far as my local Target here in the Philadelphia area to actually have a security person just outside the self-checkout area so that if there is a problem. So the problem of shrink has been one that retailers know has been there, and now they see this as a way to try and mitigate shrink, at least in this arena.
Yes, no, absolutely. And shrink is not a new problem in retail. I mean, retailers for years have been dealing with this problem, both from customers, their own employees, and this is something that it's been embedded in processes over the years. I think that now, because of the level that this issue has the level that we are seeing of this issue is where the retailers are making additional investment once the technology is in place. But to your point, I mean, if you have one employee monitoring two self-checkouts, then you start to question, like, to what extent this trade-off of labor for the equipment is actually making sense, right?
So then do we look then to advancing the technology even further to be able to try and help this process out?
To some extent, yes. And that's why I think there are now companies that are offering some integration with an AI video monitoring tool that will kind of politely suggest that you made a mistake, that there is an item that you forgot, that these are the organic tomato, not the regular tomato, and so you're kind of making those savings on the checkout step. And I think that is something we're going to see in the same way we saw the companies incorporating the weight of the product at the end as an additional checkpoint. I think we're going to see more and more refinements. But I mean, you don't need to be too creative to think ways around if your intent is to cause the shrink, right? So
now some people would say the easiest way to get around this is add more human beings to the mix.
Yeah,
but companies are probably not going to do that.
That's probably part of the story, and I think that's why I mentioned that companies that have not gone down that path are retailers that see the value of that interaction as something that adds value to the customer, to the shopping experience, and that I think is why there are good reasons to stick to your strategy and not necessarily jump on every opportunity of a new technology coming to the store.
But it does seem like that the use of this technology will remain, somewhat under control in terms of the amount that they use it. You will still have checkout lines that have human beings behind them in the cash registers because you don't want to, in many cases, retailers, I guess, don't feel secure enough to have totally, self-checkout operations in place.
No, absolutely. And what definitely is going to happen, and it is happening, is for those retailers that have started to make the investment. Remember, these are companies that has like thousands of stores. So to what extent they continue to roll this out, expand? I mean, now that they're seeing the numbers that are coming up for those components that they didn't know before making the investments, are now reasons why they will probably think twice before jumping in, assuming that shrink is going to be of a level that it turns out not to be. Benefits from the customer side, from the employee side, are not as high as they thought. So I think you're right that we are going to definitely continue to see the technology in place, but I don't think we're going to completely remove the workers from the checkout line anytime soon.
Santiago, great to have you with us today. Thanks very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Santiago Gallino, Associate Professor of Operations, Information, and Decisions, and of Marketing here at the Wharton School.